I think I'm already converted to being a believer.
One cold plunge.
One.
Wait, well, hold the phone.
Yeah.
You're that person
Back
that's like, I tried this trend.
Are you?
Well, okay.
Are you? Let's
Yes,
get you.
that is.
Let's get you in 33-degree water.
Yeah.
yeah,
Whoa,
that's
hey,
good.
wait.
That's
Whoa. We gotta like.
That's fair.
We gotta.
You have to
edge
come over in
into it.
February at the creek and do it like Brock and I did.
Oh, yeah.
No.
All right.
I'm never doing that again.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Nick has a river that goes through his property, and we went literally in January, right? And just to make it worse, it was 5 a.m.
Okay.
4:30 in the morning. I don't know why we did that
It
either.
was early. Well, we had work.
Well,
Everybody had to get to work, so we
I
did it in the morning.
guess. I guess it's important. We could have done it on the weekend.
Dang.
No,
Work.
32 degrees, rushing
No.
river water.
it was very cold. 30 seconds.
And it was just like, we feel like going in freezing water today, or it
I
was like
don't
the
know.
cold plunge, like you were trying to be one with nature in the
we
cold
were
plunge.
getting into
or-
the idea of cold plunging, and
And you just full sent it.
yeah,
Okay.
basically.
You're
Pretty
like,
much.
I'm gonna
Yeah, we only done it a few
caveman
times at that
this
point.
and just
but,
go
yeah.
into the. Yeah.
30 seconds was all we were able to last.
Yeah.
And
No, that
my
was.
brother Tyler did it with us too, and he was like, "All right, I'm out of here."
Yeah,
See you later."
maybe we would have lasted. Probably not.
And then Tyler pushed out the bank, so I couldn't get out.
That's funny. Yeah, if you do it that
You
cold,
cold plunge
you have to
hazed, like,
prepare
you're
more.
like-
Yeah, I was stuck in the cold plunge.
Yeah, Brock fell
That's
back in.
That's awful.
You have to
My
if you
fault.
do it that cold, you have to go. You have to be more prepared. Like you need a hat and gloves, and you got to keep your hands out of the water. And,
Yeah.
But
We
no,
didn't do
anyway,
that.
No.
No.
We should have done
no,
that.
how cold is this? 40?
47, 48.
Yeah, it's still cold for sure. Yeah,
It
it's
felt
freezing.
cold.
Yeah, it's
But
very
as
cold.
soon as I got my breathing, because I didn't realize that it took my
helps.
breath away. And then all of a sudden I'm sitting in there and I'm like, I'm holding my breath. And I didn't even realize I was holding it.
Yeah,
And
stress
then-
response is
Yeah, I was like,
tense and
Was that your first time?
yeah. Oh yeah. And I was like, oh no. Okay.
Yeah.
Whoa. and I put music on and I was like, if I have music, I can do it.
How long did you do it for?
3 minutes.
Okay. Wow.
3 minutes.
Legit.
And tell him,
Very nice.
Like a boss.
like a boss.
Like a boss.
Very nice.
I just got.
Very impressive.
Thank
Just got
you.
in there, got it done.
Well, I think
No complaining.
here's
No complaining.
this is the thing about me though. If I would have done that by myself, I would have probably been a baby about it. But because I had to prove it to you that I could do
Stephanie
it really
was-
well,
And-
I was like, no, I'm going to be a
Stephanie
boss
was
about
recording
this.
you.
Stephanie was recording me. No, see, but this is how
Be
I
strong
know.
for the camera. Be strong for the camera.
I need external validation. Set myself up for success. I said, Brock, I'm going to be great at this. Just watch. I'm awesome.
I still don't understand why it's so hard. Remember like going to camp as a kid and you do the polar plunges?
No, I did not. But yes,
Yeah,
I
and
remember people
Roadrunners.
doing that. I just was like,
Did
no.
you not were those just like quick dips and then get out, or
I
were
think
they?
it's kind of like you dive in,
and then you get out. That's
get
all it
out.
was. Okay,
Yeah.
'Cause those didn't seem
Baby
as
work.
bad. Nowadays, it's like torture. But
No,
like,
because
how did,
the
I don't know.
first step in, you don't have to do the mental discipline of, I need to control my breathing. I need to slow my heart rate down. I need to that. None of that happens. You're just having that boom response, get
Full-on
out.
panic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
it's the second step. It's like 10 seconds in where you're like, okay, now I need to control my own
Yep.
self.
Yeah.
The quicker you can get in, the better.
Yeah, and that was my first step. I was like, okay, I'm gonna get in. I'm gonna get in quick. I'm not gonna give myself a chance to escape.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go.
Just strap
And then I
yourself
didn't want to
in there.
move. That's the thing, though. When you said move, I did not realize that when you move, because you're already getting numb,
It gets cold
it
again.
feels like pins and needles, right? You're like, ooh.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
now
like
everybody we know, not everybody, like Tyler does it. Calder's got a bin
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Yep.
Well,
a
I
bunch of
feel
people.
like I don't even need the coffee.
Yeah.
I feel like
Really?
Yeah. No, I'm hype. Again, I really think these kinds of things, I drink the Kool-Aid is basically what happens to me. It's very dangerous. It's dangerous. It's good. It's bad.
Yeah,
right?
it's hard to get addicted to cold plunging though, because you feel great now, and then tomorrow you'll be like, oh yeah, I'm drank the Kool-Aid and I'm all in,
Yeah.
and then you'll wake up tomorrow and not want to do it.
Well, we were talking about this.
It's just as hard.
We
the
were
next day.
and it stays hard, which is cool because not everything stays super hard like
Right.
that.
Yep.
But we were talking about that where it's like as soon as I make the decision to go do something, that's like the hardest part for me. Like we're talking about like working out and like trying to set up a gym for myself, going on this whole like health fitness journey and whatever. And it's not the actual doing it that's super hard. I like that challenge. I get into it. I drink the Kool-Aid. It is the deciding to go do that. That is the hardest part for me. Once I get past my own self, then I can pretty much do anything I want to try to do.
Corwin said that with some of the people that he was training, the hardest thing for them was just to get there. To get in the gym. He said he knew clients who would drive to the gym even and just sit in the parking lot and just stare at the gym.
Yeah, because that's the mental part of it is absolutely the hardest part.
And I think that's the only thing that makes this easy. Physiologically, cold plunging takes a long time before you like have a tolerance, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But you feel more comfortable to do it because you've already done it.
Yeah.
So that's part of it for me.
You're like, I know it.
Because
I know
every single time I get into 48, I'm like, this is not comfortable. This is cold.
This stinks.
And so like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if your body really, it's more of a mental thing. Maybe your body doesn't get used to it as quick as you do mentally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was feeling pretty good 3 minutes in. I was like, all right, I can sit here. Maybe it's because I was becoming numb. I was like, I can sit here.
The thermal layer is
sing a
real
little
too.
bit.
Yep.
Yeah.
The thermal layer is real too. You can tell when you move the water and you're like,
No, that was real.
Yeah, I think keeping your fingers and your toes out of the water really extends how long you can do it for.
That was the most painful. My toes and my hands
always
especially
hurts.
were like they hurt. The rest of me didn't, especially like my core self felt,
in my
felt
ears,
okay.
your ears too. Like if I've noticed that if you get down to like below 40, your ears, your fingers, and your toes. So if you wear a winter hat and you keep your extremities out of the water,
Does it have the same benefit?
it just doesn't. Yeah,
I
I think
think
as long
it
as your
does.
body is under, you're good. But if you keep like, they just start to hurt, and then like the pain gets me out of the water.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
I've tried to keep like, it's hard to balance in the creek and like keep my hands and toes out of the water. It's not a bathtub.
rushing water.
Yeah, but my ears also hurt. So like I have to wear a winter cap if I want to stay in for longer than.
But
a
you're
minute.
talking about
Really cold,
in the
like
winter time.
yeah. If it's like, I'm sure like
Caveman cold
even
plunge.
like 40.
That's your
degrees
next
would be-
step. You'll graduate to that next step next time if you come up in
Yeah.
the winter.
You got to do it at least once in your life, like at
For
least
sure.
one time.
Do ya?
At least
Maybe.
once.
Okay.
You try just above freezing water.
We're just gonna keep pouring the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
I'll just keep drinking. This is the problem with me. Kool-Aid? Thanks.
Thanks.
Tastes
Oh.
great.
I'm telling all my friends now.
No, I will too. I will be like, cold plunging? Have you heard about it?
I'm not a fad guy. Like,
Yeah.
I don't like get into like the cool cultural trends and what's buzzing.
Yeah.
But like with this, I tried it and almost immediately felt like
Okay, I
feel
good.
pretty good right now. Like I could probably run through a wall. That dopamine hit is so
Yeah.
that is so real.
Yeah.
It's the only benefit I can measure or feel.
Yeah.
But I mean, they say there's lots of other benefits. No doctor, so don't take my
Yeah.
advice. But
I know. I got to look into it now. I got to.
now you do your research.
Because now I'm interested in, like, physiologically
What's
what's
doing.
going on.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
That's the biggest thing between the cold showers and the cold plunging.
Oh, okay.
Like, if I'm going to do something, I want to do it optimally if I can help
Sure.
it. Where cold showers feels like it's kind of just hitting you random and like it's not comfortable and you're probably getting the same effects, but I want to be like completely submerged so that I know that I'm getting the effects.
Yeah. Plus,
The
it's called
sickness of my
plunge. You
personality.
know, I
I
feel
hate
like
cold showers. I'd rather cold plunge.
Yes. Okay,
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah.
I had Stephanie do a cold shower. Like we were going to try to do it for a little while. I did one and I was like, that's way worse.
It's way worse.
It's way worse. So,
Yep.
so that's something. Anyways, we're talking cold plunges.
I know.
This is Jenna Egensteiner, my
Hello.
sister-in-law. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank
you are in
you.
studio.
It's so nice in here.
Thank you.
It's cool to be sitting here after I've listened to a bunch of them.
Oh, you're a
so-
fan.
I am a fan.
Awesome.
Fan, sister-in-law, guest. Look at me.
Look at
making
you.
the rounds.
Cold plunge expert. The
well,
list goes
let's
on.
let's just keep adding it to the list. Put that under my name.
We're excited to talk to you because you are very influential person. You're well spoken. You have a career that's interesting to talk about. And you have a lot of insights into personality and work ethic, and you're a mom and a wife.
Yeah.
And we've only had our wives on so far. And you're the first exclusive female guest.
Nice.
So welcome.
Thanks.
And why don't you just introduce yourself?
Sure. So like I said, Jenna Egensteiner. I have a almost 4-year-old son. His name is Leo. He's awesome. Been married for 7 years now. Been with my husband for 10 years. Maybe I think this is 11 coming up. So we met in college. And I am a contracts negotiator for a large defense company, specifically working in aviation. So that means I am actually the person who works with the government specifically, and I sell helicopters. I fight about price and scope, and then we shake hands and we award it to a contract. It is quite literally what you see in the movies where you sit across the table and you negotiate.
And you walk through the halls with your briefcases in slow motion.
Oh,
Real war dogs
situation. Yes.
Yeah.
For sure. It is just as exciting as it sounds. Honestly, it is pretty riveting career, and I'm kind of fell into it because I studied psychology in college and didn't know what I wanted to do. And kind of started there with low-level data entry kind of job, and used my best skill that I think I have, which is interpersonal and just making friends, asking people, can you teach me this? How do I learn? And people were like, I think you could do something else. And in the contracts field where I work, it's mostly like lawyers. I don't have a legal background. But they're like, you could learn this. I think you could do this well. And so I started doing that, and I really, really enjoy it. I find a lot of fulfillment from it. It's super challenging to me, and that's something that's important to have in my life. And then now I'm balancing that with motherhood, and that's a really interesting perspective to have. I think that it's very different than like my sister's experience. Good and bad both come with it, but it's good. I really like working, and I really like being a mom, and I'm just trying to balance that all out, which is very difficult.
I have so many questions.
Yeah, cool.
What is it? Just helicopters? Like mostly, you're in the helicopter division.
I'm in the helicopter space, and I specify in the air vehicle side, so the actual helicopter. There are lots of things that you sell with helicopters: spares, training devices. But I actually do the helicopter themselves, and I work specifically right now with the government, but I have worked with foreign government, foreign military, commercial customers, things like that, very different types of contracts. So, but right now I work specifically with the U.S. government.
Okay. So if you work with a foreign government, is that like is that what it means when like the U.S. like helps other countries with?
Sometimes.
Yeah, is that what that means?
Sometimes, okay. Yeah. So there's different kinds of funding. Uh-huh. So that is called foreign military funding, FMF, and certain types of contracts for that. So that means that we actually work with the government, United States government themselves, contract with them. Money comes from them. We don't actually ever really get with the end user, except for if you're doing things like training, any flight stuff, things like that. But the contracting itself happens with the U.S. government. Then there's foreign military sales, and there's like commercial sales, and that's where you'll work with the end user. So I work specifically with the Philippine Air Force. Right when Leo was younger, he was probably 6 months to a year old when I was working with the Philippines. And I worked directly with them. Their contract was with my company and the Philippine Air Force. So it depends on what color of money is what we call it.
What does that mean?
Where the funding comes from. So if it's coming from the taxpayers of the United States, then we're working directly with them. And on the contract, the name is our company, U.S. If the money is coming directly from the end user, who is another country, they'll name would be on the contract.
Is that because it's actually different color money in other places?
Hey,
hard-hitting
gotta Google
questions.
this.
Jump it down for me, please.
Gotta Google. You never know, because sometimes it does come
FMF.
from. Yeah, there you go. And then FMS, Foreign Military
That's cool.
Sales. Yeah, that was an interesting perspective, because I do a lot of work with the government, and then working with a different country, different culture, different time zone, different language, and in contracts where like words really, really matter. That was super interesting and really stretched me. It made me more considerate, I think. Calls at midnight with people who are making legally binding decisions in their second language. I was like, that is really impressive. Really nice people to work with too. So that was a really cool experience. It's hard because he was like, 5 months old. My son was 5 months old at the time, and I'm like nursing and then also on a call with the Philippine government. I'm like, gotta do what you gotta
bottle
do.
Ready. Get that bottle ready. Hold on a second.
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Jeez.
I had a book in college called Kiss, Bow, Shake. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Okay, yeah. It was from a business class, and it was like, it had every country in it tabbed, and it was a general summary of like the proper way to culturally interact with each and now that
that's good.
Like now it's probably like some Americanized, watered down version, like I don't know how true, I don't know.
And there are things like I remember working with people from the Philippines. They were great. They were very big into pleasantries and being super respectful. So it was always calling me ma'am, Jenna, ma'am, ma'am, Egensteiner, Miss Egensteiner, very, very proper. And so we had to kind of reciprocate that, where it was sir, ma'am, yes. Also super interesting is that they're a very big like Catholic nation. And so before we would do bids and stuff, there would be like the military would open in prayer. And like it's just such a comparison to working with the U.S. government, just completely different cultures. And I really, really enjoyed that time of doing stuff like that. And I was selling repairs and spares with them. So different part of the aircraft too, which was cool.
Repairs and spares, is that like parts?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like aircraft, just like a car, but a helicopter even more so because of where it's at, brakes. And so the people who are using it need to have extra spare parts. They need to know how to repair those parts. So we have like manuals that we give them. So it's literally like just like you would have a manual for any piece of equipment you own. Big giant manuals that often get updated, how to fix it, how to maintain it, how to train it, how to fly it, all that kinds of stuff. So
Wow, that's pretty cool.
From a book?
There's electronic versions, but yes, there's books. There are physical books that go
to
on the aircraft.
Smart people.
Yeah.
If
Physical
I got one
books
of
do
those
it on
books,
the
I'd be
aircraft.
like, there's got to be a video somewhere I can just follow along.
Sold them
YouTube,
a
anyone?
YouTube link. Yeah.
I put a swing set together recently, and let me tell you,
Those.
if it wasn't for the 3D video, I don't know if I would have ever got it done.
I'm like, these
Zoom
aren't
in,
helping me. I
spin it
need
around.
some visual.
It's like, what's this book thing?
Yeah, that's cool.
So what constitutes a helicopter? Does that just mean like rotary driven?
Yeah.
And like what would be like the most common thing that you would be dealing with, like as far as this is the product or service that you sell the most?
Yeah.
Is there one thing?
Yeah, so I think, yes, for answer your first question, it's rotary. What makes a helicopter is that it can hover in place.
Oh.
So that's what makes it special compared to fixed wing aircraft. But the idea was to be able to save people out at sea, because a fixed wing aircraft couldn't do that, couldn't stop, and so pick someone else. Yeah, so that would be an
grabbing
issue.
a golf ball off the ground on the golf cart.
Like, whoops, missed ya.
Have you ever done that? Have you ever tried to grab a golf ball on like a fairway while you're driving past it?
No, haven't done the
Very
golfing
hard,
thing,
that'd be the
but
same thing.
I'm really drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm like, all the
Now you're
guys
gonna
I work with, they
golf.
go golf. And I'm like, if I'm going to be an executive one day,
Oh,
I think
wow.
I need to learn how to golf
You
here.
do. You got good golf courses where you guys are living. So
Right near my house, too. I was
Yep.
like, I've been trying to ask Luke's cousin. I was like, can you take me? Can you take me? He's like, maybe. He's like, it's just really my time to enjoy. And I was like, someone teach me, please.
Yeah, that's golf.
But the guys at work too, they were like, I'll teach you. It
may be a negotiation strategy someday. Take your
gotta golf.
Gotta play the game.
Partners
Gotta play the game.
That's right.
So I was like, all right. And I don't want to be bad either. Like, I don't know how to. No. I want to win at the golf if I'm going to be able to, if I'm going to golf, right? So
you started entry-level data position.
Yeah.
And what were your supervisors such good leaders where they could see certain qualities in you that would propel you to the next level? Or was it
some people? So
you going after the position, or was it kind of
exacerbating
your
it was kind of
strengths?
both, I would say. I mean, the good thing about the first job that I had was that it interfaced with a lot of different other functions. And instead of like just staying in my lane, I was really interested in learning about all of those other functions. And so basically my job was any data that we had to send the customer, I basically just had to mark it with the appropriate data markings, like proprietary information. When I tell you just mark it like on a PDF, just put a stamp on it and then like put it in a folder and send it, like that was my job. That's how data driven it was. I think AI will eventually be able to go do that, right? Mm-hmm. It was really, really different. And so I would ask the people who were sending me the data, like, can you explain that to me? What does this mean? Tell me more about what you do. And then obviously just make friends, just like kind of like personally, and talk to people, and people would like interacting with me. And because of that, like my bosses were fine. They were great, but they were like very much like, let's get the work product, but other people's bosses were like, she seems like she could go do something. And then I wanted to. I really had the drive to make something of myself that I was feeling fulfilled and challenged. That was the bigger thing. Is I think when I first started out of college, it was really hard for me to get into the workspace because I felt like I wasn't being challenged creatively. I had been such a creative person in college in terms of like the arts. And then going from that to seriously just stamping a PDF and scrolling through every page to make sure it got there, like kind of got me a little depressed. I was like, is this what life is like for grown-ups? Like, what is this? So I thought it was because I wasn't doing something creatively with the arts. Now I think looking back, it was more that I wasn't challenged. For my brain. I wasn't, I just wasn't being fulfilled in terms of like problem solving. So I really wanted to make something myself. Didn't really know what, but a manager called me and he was like, do you want to do contracts? Like, I think you'll like seeing the whole product from buying it, procuring it, to selling it and closing it out. You get to work with everybody. You get to work with the customer. You get to make the company money. And I was like, I like the sound of that. It sounded a little performative to me, like negotiating itself is kind of like a performance, a chess game.
Skill.
Absolutely. And then once I got in it, I decided, okay, I want to be really good at this. I really want to do well at it. And so now I'm actually in a graduate program to try and get better at that. So at night on Tuesdays, I go to a grad program in public policy. I'm getting a master's of public management, specializing in federal acquisition. So literally selling things to the government. It's good.
Of course, there's a degree for that.
There is. Well, government's got to buy stuff.
The government's got a healthy budget.
Got to buy a lot of stuff, especially for in the defense industry. Healthy budget.
Yep.
But boy, do they fight for it.
How much good? That makes, as a taxpayer, that makes me feel good.
And they legit will look at me and say, I need to represent the taxpayer. Mm-hmm. How many times have I heard that? And I said, I completely understand.
I am a taxpayer.
That is your perspective.
That. However,
this is how much it costs. Do you want the superior product?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, what does your day-to-day look like as far as, preparing, like researching, preparing, actually a day where you are like like this is the day that we're going to go talk to somebody about the actual, like, what does your day-to-day look like?
Yeah. So last year, last year, I was in the midst of a very large negotiation, 53 aircraft. It was like very large. We're talking dollars with a B, like very large, a lot of visibility. And I traveled a lot to the customer to go negotiate. And I learned so much. It was such a challenging time, but it was really transformative for me in like honing my skills as a negotiator. So during that kind of time, because there's different phases of the contract, right? But during that kind of time, which is to me the most fun, is I'm really studying the specific things that we're going to talk about, because the way we estimate cost is super robust, super detailed. Something I've learned about negotiating, and I think can translate to like life, is that if you're going to argue something or discuss something, you have to know the details of not only your argument. You don't want to be surprised by what someone else is going to say, especially for your own information. Mm-hmm. So knowing that, and then trying to anticipate the other person's perspective, the other person's argument, and their data, and understand that. And if you don't, being able to ask questions that'll get you to where you need to go and get them where they need to go.
Is that called discovery?
Yeah. There you go.
Nick's very proud of himself. Look at his smile.
I used to do some sales.
And so
wasn't helicopters.
Hey, you know, some of the skills are very transferable. Like I use them in my daily life when I'm trying to buy things now, right? But
you haggle at Walmart.
Yeah. Do you know what I do? Do you know what I did the other day? You want to hear how I'm deranged now, right? I'm ruined for good. My son was gonna go to a camp, didn't end up working out, but there was all of these like terms, and there was these. So I'm reading them, and it's like, you will not be held negligent, not liable. So I'm reading these, and I'm like, you know, I redline it. I'm redlining his camp like waivers.
I'm like, briefcase in the pants, walking down the hall.
No, I'm like, there is something so wrong. I cannot help myself anymore. I cannot. Yeah. Even like when we were talking about selling our house a couple years back, we didn't end up doing it, but like this realtor gave me his agreement.
You're like outlining.
I redlined it.
That's like your version of like the tradesman who walks in and notices all of the things that they
do. And oh, my dentist the other day. Oh, this is another one. She goes, "That's just for your root canal. You know, you don't have to read it. Just sign it." I said, "Excuse me."
3 hours later,
I said, I literally was like, "No, I read everything I sign. Thank you very much." She was like, You're right.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I do have a problem, but I do. It's infiltrated my whole life for sure.
So I have a question. Why the need for a negotiator? Why does the company not just set a price, and why the need for the negotiation?
Prices change. It's super dynamic, not only with like the scope, but years, rates. Just like anything has inflation, parts have inflation. Like the supply chain has changed dramatically since COVID. And also, when you're dealing with the government, there's this regulation. It's called the Federal Acquisition Regulation. We call it the FAR. That's like the negotiation and selling procurement Bible to the government. And it is very detailed in terms of what we have to do. Luckily, for the government, we have to be incredibly transparent about why things cost the way they do. And we have to explain every little bit of cost. So there is no hiding any of that. But there's still different perspective. So we have to tell them, if we're doing something that we've done before, we have to tell them exactly how it cost the last time we did that, and pull what we call actuals and say it did this many hours to go do this thing, and put it into our estimates, put it into our proposal. But the government can say, I think this effort that's different, that's more similar, and I think you could use these hours instead of these. Or I think the scope's a little different, so I think you can knock some of those hours off and we can decrement that. We got to talk through that back and forth. Same thing with material. Like, I think you can take that risk. And then we argue on profit based on risk. That's a little bit more judgmental, right? So definitely need the interpersonal people. There's so many elements that I think you can't really understand till you're in it, that needs to be dealt with face to face with a human being.
Do you think that this is the complication? The complications are because it's working with the federal government, and is it less complicated if you're doing like a B2B type of contract?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I guess it depends. Competition is a big part of it. Right now, I'm selling things sole source to the government, so it's a lot harder to negotiate with the customer when we've been selling the same thing for a long time. We're the only ones doing it on their end too, right? So they don't have anyone else to go say, we're going to go over there and buy that thing, which drives our cost down.
You can't go to Walmart and get a helicopter?
You can't go to Walmart and get a helicopter. Oh, darn. But I've seen that commercial customers that, have their budget that they can spend what they want, basically, don't have to represent the taxpayer. It's a little different. And if there's competition, that changes everything, right? Because now you want to beat out your competitors, and they're going to try to give the lowest price technically acceptable. And so that changes the whole ball game.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh.
Really interesting.
Cool. Well, we ran over a little bit. So we're going to reset some batteries and some recordings, and then we'll get back to Nick touched on the day-to-day, what that looks like.
Yeah.
And then also into personality traits, how that has served you so far. Kryptonite versus superpower. Those kinds of things. So
love that.
All right, we'll be right back. And we're back.
Go back to the day-to-day, I guess, because I didn't really answer that. But
skirting the tough questions.
Yeah. You guys know how to put it out there.
We're real hard hitters here.
Yeah, the hard-hitting journalism.
Hey, everybody's a journalist nowadays. The bar is not that high.
Day-to-day, I guess it would be, again, really preparing, knowing what your argument's going to be, prepping for that, really understanding each of them, because my job is to be the conduit from the people who are experts in those things, in building it, and why it costs that much, why it takes that many hours, and explaining that to the contracting officer, the government, who is not a technical expert in that, being able to translate that. So knowing what I think he or she's going to respond with, and then I have to prep myself mentally, especially if I'm going into negotiation. I feel like just kind of like I did with, like, if I did sports or our performance or anything like that, I get really quiet and introspective, like the morning of a negotiation. I'm not like my bubbly self. I'm really like game face.
Like Dwight Schrute listening to Metallica
yes.
before a sale.
100%.
You will get this raise.
People are like, Jenna, you okay? And I'm like, I'm getting my game face on.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because honestly, arguing does not come supernaturally to me. I am so not argumentative.
Does it feel like arguing?
Yes.
They're like heated discussions.
Very heated discussions. Very, sometimes it's not, right? But
intense.
A lot of it's very intense.
Why is that?
High stakes.
Yeah, just a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Yeah,
pressure.
okay.
A lot of pressure to get it done.
Yeah.
Huge dollar. And also, I think people just, when they believe they are correct, they will hold firm and they will convince themselves that is the right thing, unless you are really good at providing counter arguments to their belief. That is a strategy. And so I would think about strategies about what I want to do. And I was talking to my sister about this. Something that I've always done is play mentally in my mind and like rehearse it, what I think is going to happen in a bunch of ways. So like the night before a negotiation, I will literally be in my bed and I will be thinking of what exactly I'm going to say, picture it in my mind, what I think the response is going to be. and respond back to that. And then I'll do another version. And then I'll do another version. And so I'm like, just like if you were in sports and you're like, this is how I'd hit this, or whatever, how I'd make that play, whatever. That's how it is for me. And I will visually see it happening in my mind over and over and over again so that I can try to prepare myself for a variety of different outcomes. And I really try to use like the tactics that I've learned and think ahead of time how I want to approach it. Am I going to approach it like, hey, I really understand your perspective on that. I can understand why you see it this way, this way, this way. What if we approach it from this perspective? Or am I going to approach it that way where it's trying to sympathize and like say, hey, we got a common goal. I understand you. I understand where you're coming from. Can you try to see it from my angle? Or am I going to be more like, hey, this is why you're wrong, and here's why. And to me, my style has been more like a connective kind of style, and I'll wait pretty much till the last minute to be really, really argumentative. And that seems to play to my advantage because I think people tend to get argumentative quicker. And if I'm really calm, it saves me from traps that I think people get into when they get super emotional and mad, upset. So I try to replay that, I try to do that. And then we sit down at a table similar to this, and we'll say, okay, where do we want to start? What's our goal for the end of the day? What do we want to try to accomplish? And then we'd go talk about it like detail by detail. Every negotiation is different, so that really depends.
They don't like happen in a day? Like I'm assuming, no. I'm gathering that like you may not work at one job at a time kind of thing, but like these deals happen over time. Yeah. So like this last one I did for the large quantity of aircraft, that took like a year to negotiate. So it's really, really long time. And usually you want it to be less than that, right? You obviously want it to be less than that. You want to do this as quickly as possible, get it on contract, things like that. But
because everything just doesn't start until that's black on paper.
Yes, usually. Right. We have a specific case where there are ways that the government can contract without settling on a definitive price. They're called undefinitized contract actions.
Which is basically like, this is a done deal. We just have to figure out the numbers.
Go work it. Go
UCCs,
start it.
UCCs.
Yeah.
We're just gonna start abbreviating everything she says, just so we can feel smart.
Just go do that, and that's actually what we had, which made it a bit more challenging. Teams already working it.
And a little more pressure.
Ooh, a little more high stakes.
Teams working it. Now we got to settle, and we got. Not only do I have to like make sure we're getting the amount of cost that we need to go actually build it, then I got to make sure that I am committing to our company to make sure we're getting a proper return. Mm-hmm. Like that's my biggest goal, obviously, is to make sure our company is going to be able to stay in business, continue to do that.
Is that a big source of pressure? Yeah.
Absolutely. It is constantly talking about what are we going to make sure that we're making a proper return on.
What is the source of that? Is it just every quarter we need to show better profits? Like what's the prime above. Source?
So company definitely has like, here's what we're trying to do, and this is what your authority is to go do at a company down level. And then it's like, okay, we're having pressure. Usually in a big business like that, and I think any business, you don't want to plan for the quarter ahead. You want to plan years down the line.
Yeah.
So way better to get it in front of it. But of course there are things like, hey, end of quarter's coming, like try to get some more of this, try to get some more of that, like we need to finish it. But usually it's further reaching where it's, hey, we need to make about this to make sure that we're satisfying our shareholders, make sure that we're being able to stay alive as a company. Mm-hmm. That takes, that's usually years out. And that's just company policies too that flow down. And when you have to deviate from that, it's a big deal. And you have to go up. It's very bureaucratic. It's very hierarchical. Got to go up the chain as if you deviate further and further. So,
especially large corporations, you kind of have to have that structure. You have to.
We were just talking about this in class too, where it's, there's obviously some downsides to like a bureaucratic structure like that. Mm-hmm. But
find a better way.
When there's such high stakes and they're so the risk is so high, and
a co-op wouldn't work as good.
Or like some companies, there are companies that are doing like no one has any titles and like everyone just does your certain scope, and that's and some I think that works probably for some companies. And sometimes it gets in the way. Like I think
in your industry, no. Okay. So like just there's companies out there who kind of do that.
Not that I know of. Okay. In the no.
I was going to say because that seems very inefficient.
Probably like Zappos. You know, I think that was the example that.
Got it. And the main issue being like the American taxpayer is the one funding this stuff, and so that is the high stakes.
Yeah. Okay. That, and because it's a for-profit company and it is like there are shareholders, like that matters. Yeah. And it matters how it gets on the street.
Transparency and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it totally matters on the street when you're looking at, different companies in the same industry compared to each other, right? You want the stock to be good.
Oh, okay.
So that really, really matters, especially like every end of year, like all of that stuff matters. And so, of course, when you're at a really large company, the thing that I'm doing specifically, even though it's big dollar value, like there are bigger and bigger and bigger, and there are so many, right? It is, there's so many things going on, but, it definitely matters.
I appreciate what you said about the about being conscientious and preparing your mind ahead of time. A debate, like somebody who's in debates, would be similar. I need to be able to have counter argument. Sure. But in my work, in my policing work, I was constantly doing that. Yeah. Like I'd be sitting in my cruiser, just staring at nothing, thinking of every possible scenario for the next call. Then the call would come in, and as I'm driving to the call, I'm thinking of every possible externality that I need to be able to adjust for. And I still do that today. Like I've been out of that for like 3 years. Wow. 3 years.
Yeah. That's crazy.
I do that when I go to restaurants. When I go to my kids' places, I'm watching people's hands. I'm looking for the door. I'm like, it's just something I can't really shut off, I guess. But it served me really well. Yeah. So it's good that it serves you well. And you can be ready for anything that's thrown at you because, I rehearsed that in my mind already.
Being able to anticipate and read people, I think is just a really important skill to have. And then not only just to be able to read what they're going to do, understand why they're doing it and where they're coming from. That's really served me. I think people who kind of write that off as like, oh, like what a moron, or like that's stupid, or you're paranoid,
you're overthinking.
Mm-hmm. It's not that it gets you nervous, right? It's not that you're nervous about any of the outcome. It's that you're trying to understand it, because if you understand it, you can attack it.
Yeah. It's instead of never thinking about the situation before and then being faced with it in a situation that has to have an immediate response.
Yeah, like because there will obviously be times where you have to think quick on your feet. Right. Like it just happens. You will not know everything that's going into it. And that becomes a skill in itself. But I think what's more important is the ability to like slow yourself and not have to make those quick judgment. I was talking to someone about this the other day too. And I'm in a certain like leadership program right now at work that's like specific to try to hone my leadership skills in my like function, my contracts work. And this guy came and he talked to us, and he was saying, the person you want to follow is not the person who is rushing down the hall, talking on their phone, speaking really quickly, emotional tone of voice, speeding their way through life. That reads chaotic. You're going to follow the person who is slowly and deliberately going purposely to where to their end goal, where they want to go, looking straight ahead, walking slow with purpose. And that really resonated with me, because I naturally am high energy. I mean, you saw me, high energy, lots of language, talking, really reactive, really emotional. Those are things that are like part of my superpower of who I am. But something that I've had to learn in my work and which has served me so well in my life and as a mother, is that I have to slow myself down 10% from where I naturally sit, and slow my heart rate, slow my talking speed, slow my thinking, listening, and then calm. That has been much more serving to me than a reactive, a passionate response. So I've really, in the past year and a half, I've worked really hard on slowing myself down to be able to think more clearly and anticipate what the other person's going to say. Keep in my mind that file cabinet of research that I've already studied and know, because you lose it if you're going to go too fast, if you're going to be reactive. If you slow down, you can sift through that file cabinet. You can actually hear what they're saying to you and respond accordingly. And then sometimes in negotiations and arguments, people get really annoyed if you're taking a long time to talk, or if you sit in a silence. And then they say things that you can use in the argument against them. And that has been really cool because people like to fill silence. And if I slow myself down 10%, I can wait, and I can wait you out. And that seems to serve me.
It's like a whole different world. Yeah, these are like
3D chess.
Yeah, these are like like traditionally 4D. Not skills that I would use in like a personal relationship to resolve problems, but this is like a whole different ball game.
It serves with my son, I will say.
Yeah. Silent, not being the first to speak is good, but the reasons behind it, like it's a whole different world.
It really is, and it is specific skill. Like it really is specific skill. But I've noticed that in terms of slowing myself down, for my son anyway, like I have found that I have to be his regulation, and the practice that I've had of regulating myself in a really high stress environment in where someone is trying to make me trip up has really served me with my toddler who doesn't know how to self-regulate. And if I'm like, Leo, or like, it is so much better for me to go slow, think, heart rate, breathing. Okay. Hearing what he's saying. He feels that from me. And that's not naturally who I am. And I think that's been a really good practice for me, and I think could be for probably a lot of people.
Yeah, there's a military term. I don't know if it's military, but law enforcement uses it as well in their operations. It is that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Yeah, pretty much sums that up pretty nicely, I think.
Yeah, that's usually that's a good life skill in most areas. We have a restaurant, and I use that same concept all the time with the employees. Like the best thing to do when the line gets longer and the door is open and the line's out the door is to slow down, because what is it? Slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
Yeah. I like
There's
that.
a purpose behind slowing down instead of trying to be faster.
And I think like in my industry, like you said, it's kind of a whole new world. There's speed matters too, right? Of like, hey, you need to go get this done. There is pressure like that. To me, I've found that if I slow down my first step of the speaking, becoming emotional,
response,
the research, the response, that I then have the ability to make quick, sound decision. And again, that's a leadership quality that I really want to exude in the future when I become a leader, or when I continue to be a leader to a team, is that I have done the upfront work so diligently, so specifically, and purposely slowly enough that I can go make a decision, feel confident about the decision, and even if it's a decision that perhaps isn't the right one, I decide I can fail quickly and then go pivot if it is a fail. Someone said that too at this leadership conference that we were at, and he said, when you become a leader, you have to feel confident enough in your decision-making abilities to go then make that decision and decide to fail quickly if you're going to fail. Because then you have the confidence in your ability to go pivot from that. And so to me, I wanted to pair that. That was great advice. I wanted to pair that with my slow myself down 10% mentality and realize that that's the first part. And then the second part is now go make the decision, be a solid rock for your team to feel comfortable making that decision. And then also realizing I can go pivot if I need to. That's a real problem solver and a leader is I'll pivot if I need to, but go make a decision. You can't just wait around hemming and hawing on something that needs to be done. So I try to pair those two, which I thought was really helpful.
You mean to say hemming and hauling?
Is that what it is?
No.
Okay. I was like, did I?
That's the Lewis County version.
You actually said it right. You actually said it correct.
She prepared for this.
You're really smart.
I did. I played it over and over up here, guys, you know?
Part of the reason... Go ahead, Nick.
Oh, okay, thanks. I was going to ask you, like, it sounds really stressful. Like, what do you do to handle the stress? I feel like you put me a year in your job and I've got no hair. I'm anxious. I don't sleep. Like, how do you handle stress? And the slowing down thing seems like part of the answer. But yeah, how do you handle the stress of this job?
Yeah, so adrenaline, even when I'm slowing myself down, the adrenaline's super high. And to me, I exert a lot of mental energy every day, like a lot. Mm-hmm. And pairing that with being a parent to a toddler, I'm definitely not going to say that I have like advice to give here. I think maybe I'll have things that are relatable to people because I struggle a lot with it. I really do. I keep trying to tell myself that like the balance of like family and home and like my mental health and the challenge and being fulfilled in my career, but also living in my life is a teeter-totter, and it is not a balance beam, and it's never going to be level all the time. And I'm never going to be walking straight on it all the time. It's going to have seasons of one is going to outweigh the other. And I hope it's like a daily thing and not like months and months, right? But in the aggregate, I'm hoping it's going to settle out. Because there's no way to give myself 100% to what I'm doing and then 100% to my kid all at the same time. I have to teeter-totter back and forth. But in terms of like myself and my stress, I don't often feel like I'm coping with that well. I think I'm functioning through it, and maybe that's why it looks like I'm coping with it well, because I'm doing everything still at kind of a high level, I think. Like I think my kid's doing great. I'm doing well at work. But every once in a while, like I'll realize, holy moly, my brain has not slowed down and I'm going to lose it. Like I'm going to have a breakdown. So I think I just need to get better at that, honestly. I really do. And that's just me being like honest. Something I'm trying to do is be better at compartmentalizing. I think a lot of men are really good at that naturally. That's not naturally something I'm really good at. I don't know if that's a Jenna thing or a woman thing or whatever. I'm like constantly thinking about all the things at once.
So you don't leave work, when you don't leave work at work.
No, and I work a lot at home. I work 2 days a week at home, and I do a lot of hours outside of my 40 hours. Mm-hmm. And so I'm working on a lot. Yeah.
I know this.
Yes. And I don't, again, people are like, Jenna, it's just work. It's just, you got to live your life. I have a hard time with that because it's not necessarily like, oh, I feel like I owe it to the company or I feel like I owe it, I feel like I have an obligation to myself and the people that I work with, but mainly myself. If I'm going to do something for 40, 50 hours a week, I want to be really good at it. And I want to feel like I'm challenged and I'm doing well and I'm learning and I'm giving a good product. So it's not necessarily that I feel this like pull to work extra hard or someone's making me work extra hard or I do like it and it is for me. I'm finding it hard to figure out how to also do my life without me losing my mind. I don't think my kid really feels the effects of it. Maybe he will, maybe he'll tell his therapist one day. My mom was on her computer. My mom was constantly on the phone. Like, headsets scare me now, Maybe he will. Maybe that's what
Headset nightmares.
Headset again.
Every time he sees a teller or a truck driver with a headset on.
Yeah, he like fetal position. Maybe. But it's really me. It really affects me. And I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm trying to figure out how that affects my marriage. I'm trying to figure out how that affects, with my family, but also keep that fire inside of me of, I like this challenge. It gives me purpose. I like being good at it. So I don't know if I have any advice or if that's just relatable to some people, that the balance is just really, really hard right now in this season.
Yeah. Yeah. I think your analogy of it's a teeter-totter and not a balance beam is interesting. I think that I would assume that what you mean to say is you don't have the kind of job where it could be a balance beam. Like, it's very high stress, high stakes, high pressure, a lot of money, like it's a big job.
Yeah.
And I've never really thought about it that way. Like, sometimes you may not have the luxury of it's a balance beam. Sometimes it's a teeter-totter, and kind of admitting that, and then like figuring out how to keep the teeter-totter as level as you can, or like you said, not let it be imbalanced, for months at a time, as opposed to, so you can fix it on a daily, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, that's interesting.
And maybe that's me rationalizing it because I was feeling so guilty a lot, specifically like to my son. I was feeling, am I missing out? I was traveling a lot when he was like 2. I was traveling, I don't know, like every other week at some point for a couple months. I was like, am I missing him? I'm a mom. I always want to be a mom. I love him so much. But I also was having fun. Like, I was really feeling like I was doing well. I was doing something important. It was really hard.
Yeah, no matter how fun it is, like, you miss your kids.
I miss my kid. Yeah. I miss my kid. But then I had to tell myself that. I had to say, it is not going to be every day that I feel like that was a balanced day. It'll probably feel like this week that was rough with work. And then I told my husband the other day, I feel like I overcompensate on the weekends, and I'm like, do all this fun stuff with Leo. And I'm like, tell me how you feel. Like, let's practice. Like, let's, do something that you love, and I'll spend time with you, and I won't look at my phone. And
Luke just needs a nap.
I
just want to take a nap. Can you relax?
Yeah, right. So I tend to maybe try to make myself, and maybe that's a rationalization. I don't know, but it is helping my like impending doom feeling of guilt that I'm like ruining him, or he's doing great. He's a great kid.
Yeah,
he's doing fine.
Yeah, kids are pretty resilient.
Really resilient, and honestly, I'm clearly not neglectful mother, right? I think mothers who work like a high stakes job like that, and I've talked with my fellow mom friends at work, we have the tendency to feel really guilty that way, even though we want the career. And then sometimes other people will make us feel that way, like, hey, they're only kids once and you're the mom. And I get that. I really do. But I think that's why I push myself so hard to be okay with doing both and not complaining and trying not to, because I do want both. I want him to see this side of me. Like, I think that's important in a different aspect of like I like that one day he'll be able to say, my mom, she worked all during this and she also got her master's, and I sat on her lap like every Tuesday night. Like, I think that's pretty cool. And I'm trying to be okay with some of the repercussions of that too.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely, like, he will at least have a lot of respect. Like, my mom did a similar thing, and I look back and like I wonder how she did it. It's like I'm in awe of the responsibility that you bear, and that you can do both is amazing to me. Like, jeez, he'll probably find it admirable.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. And it's okay if he doesn't. At least I know, like, I gave it my all to not only provide for him, like, financially, to fulfill myself and the things that I need as a person to be a well-rounded person, but also gave him the best of me that I possibly could.
Yeah.
because he deserves that, right? Like he deserves the best mother too. So I just, as long as I can teeter-totter where I feel like in the aggregate that's going well, that's where I'm at in this season of balance.
Yeah. And like there's some nuance, I think, because I mean, we're in a relatively new, as far as historically, framing this kind of conversation to having women be in these high stress positions more regularly, generally speaking, and how to balance that with your work life situation. So we did plug into a little bit of the work life balance. I'd like to get back into that after the break, and then also a little bit into personality, because there's lots of good stuff you have to say about personality, and I'm interested how you see things through that frame. Okay?
Sounds
all right,
good.
let's take a break. Be right back, everybody. Okay, folks, we're back. Before we left, we were talking about work-life balance and how hard that is, especially in the modern era for women navigating that kind of a new thing.
Yeah.
For what? 70 years? I don't know. Whenever.
Probably less.
Whenever.
Yeah.
5
years.
It is
inflammatory. Quite a while now.
Yeah.
Knowing how to navigate that's tough.
Yeah.
I know obviously men have dealt with that forever.
Yeah.
It's probably hard to be away. And
men
can compartmentalize better, and sometimes it's better for men to be away.
And I also think it's also a different perspective. I think just being a mother too, there's just like such a different, think anyway, there's just such a different connection, especially when kids are little. So it's like,
no question.
It's very, very, like, cause when we travel and we see there's the guys there with their kids, it is a different feeling than like when it's me and, my other mom friends, and it's definitely
typically
different.
You're the nurturing presence.
Yeah. Maternity leave is for, time with the baby and to heal. Paternity leave is to cook dinner, do the dishes,
take care
of the mom. Let's be honest.
No kidding.
At that age, it's
then like even through through toddlerhood, I'm sure once he gets a little older, it'll change up a little bit. But right now, like I'm his person, and it's that's difficult. It's difficult. Yeah.
So what is one strategy? You said that you really try to make the time count when you are home for when you're away.
Yeah.
What are some of the strategies? Do you plan like, okay, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z tomorrow. That way we can really get that bonding time in there.
Yeah.
Is that kind of how it goes?
Yeah, I try to. And I try to be really flexible on the weekends and doing stuff with him. And then I also try to involve him. I've been really lucky. My company is really flexible in terms of that you have a family, and like we need you to get your work done. You kind of need to be around during business hours, but pretty flexible in terms of how you get the time of it done. And so I've tried to always make sure that even if I'm on a call, even if I'm on a meeting, like if he needs me, he needs me. And people have been really receptive of that. And then I also try to make work like kind of fun, and he kind of like plays work now, which is, I'm like, again, might be talking about it with his therapist one day, but he
expert negotiator at 10.
No, he literally, they call him when I'm in grad school, they call him my little research assistant, because he like sits on my lap and he's like, hi teacher. And then at work, like everybody knows Leo because he is constantly like on my calls, and I encourage, I'm like, hey, you can say hi, mommy's talking to so-and-so, and we're talking about this, we're talking about work. And he goes, oh, helicopters? Like he like knows, he goes, oh, that's mommy's office, helicopters. He goes, Leo has to go sit on his computer now and go and do work. And I was like, that's adorable. You're going to do work? What are you going to do? Make money. And then he, hey, hello, you go do this. Okay, bye. So like, I try to involve him at least as much as I can with being like responsible with like my duties at work. Like it has to be appropriate, obviously. And then the weekend I'm like, let's go to the park, we're going to the pool, I'm putting my phone down, we're gonna go like do this fun activity. And I try to do as much of that as I possibly
that's
can.
Equally as important.
Yeah. And if I'm around, like morning meals, like even when I have someone who's helping me while I'm at home, like if he's like, no, I want mom, I'll do it for him, which I probably have to balance a little bit, but I'm like, no, he needs his mom. I'm here. I'm not going to say something else is more important than him. I'll just make it harder on myself. I really will. I'll take it and I'll just be like, okay, I will do that later. I will do it at night. I don't care. If he needs me right now, he's getting me. And it makes my teeter-totter a little harder, but do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Do what you got to do.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it sounds like that's a choice that you make when you have children.
Yeah,
And you,
it is.
Yeah, you stick to it, you own it. And
yeah. He's mine. I'll suffer. You know what I mean? Like it'll be really hard. That's okay. Like I'm his mom. I have to be his mom. That is my most important thing. And people were like, Jenna, like you don't have to do both all the time. Like you don't, and I do feel some certain responsibility to have to do both. And I think that's like the stakes are kind of high for my family personally, right? Like I have to, but I feel very accomplished. Like when I am able to do it and do it well, both of them, like mom and work, I feel like, all right, I'm kind of a boss. Like this is pretty cool. And then the next week I'm like breaking down, like I'm like swinging outside my front porch, and the neighbors are like, "She's at it again," like
the teeter-totter crashes into the ground.
So,
Somebody
the
jumped off the
aggregate.
other
I'm
end.
just gonna look at the sum, right? So,
Yep.
yeah. But
what would you? Okay, so like, yeah, you've big career. How long have you been doing it?
8 years.
8 years. Okay.
Yeah.
In with the company or in this position? Or like total?
With this company.
Okay.
I've only been with this company since I started. I started a month after I graduated college. Okay. And then this specifically, I think we're 6 years into
so this
contracts.
Been your whole 6 years. Okay. So this has been your whole career.
Pretty much, yeah.
What would you say is what's been your biggest success in the last 8 years?
In terms of my work.
Whatever you want it to be. Yeah, however you interpret that.
Yeah, so my work, I feel like I learned a lot of skills that I had no like natural innate ability at. And what I mean by that is that I used to think being really good at something meant that it came really naturally to you. Almost every aspect of my job, except the interpersonal aspect, really doesn't come naturally to me. It takes a lot of effort and time for me to learn and get better at and practice and hone the skills. I do a lot of math and Excel math in my job. I am really not naturally good at any of that. And I'm doing like some pretty complex math. And so I will say, I decided to use my innate ability of connecting with people to find people I wanted to emulate and have them teach me. And that's been a huge, like, harness something about my personality that comes supernaturally and use that to get good at things that I'm not necessarily natural at. And I find that a huge success for me is that my, not necessarily like having a legal background or naturally good at can do the mathematics in my head, is that I am very confident in my ability to learn, and I have learned a lot of skills that I had. I mean, I could not like barely sum in Excel when I first started this, and now I'm doing very complex math and doing it well because I sat and I had someone teach me, and I have the ability to learn. And that's my biggest strength at work, is that I have ability to learn and the desire to learn. So doing that, and like a concrete is that negotiation that I've been talking about, we settled it at the end of last year, and it was a good deal. And it was very hard. It was very, very hard. And I think I proved myself as someone who can work independently now. I'm not just a learner. I'm not just someone who's like trying to be someone's support, which is a lot of your beginning. There's high stakes here, so your support for a long time. Now I'm at a point in my like mid-level career where I am acting independently, and that was a huge goal of mine. I'm making decisions independently because I'm confident in that ability now. I'm showing analysis that I did that is correct and is helpful. There's lots of things that I'm still honing on, but those were that was big ones. Being able to settle that huge challenge and being able to do some of those things independently because I took the time to learn. Mm-hmm. Personal life, I mean, I'm so proud of my kid. Like, I am just floored by him every second of every day. I think he is the greatest thing to ever walk on this planet, which I'm sure every mom feels about their kid, mostly. But I'm really proud of how I persevered as a mother through really hard postpartum, really hard first couple years of his life. COVID, like working. I'm really proud of how I persevered and how he's just become such a really good person. And now seeing him be a person, that's just been phenomenal. And I think my family is doing well, and that's really important to me. So those are two big areas for me. I think that answered your question.
Yeah. So you are obviously like very intelligent, and you've come a long way. Like I feel like, what you've done in 8 years takes people a lot longer normally. So don't take this the wrong way, but now you have to say your biggest failure. And what you learned from it. Well, more importantly, what you learned from it.
And honestly, that is more important, is being able to see where you fail. That is the best way to learn. And that's something I've been working on a lot, is being able to, one, ask for feedback and accept it gracefully. That used to be really hard for me. I'm a very proud person. Again, I only like to be good at things. That doesn't make you grow at all. So being able to recognize the failure, I think, is way more important than recognize what your success at, because then that's how you create success, is that you see the failure, you pivot from that, you change, you shift, you adapt. Biggest failure, I think that I am working on it, but I still have those natural tendencies to be pretty emotional, and like talking my career specifically, like pretty emotional. I care a lot about what I do, so that comes out sometimes as like rash or not thinking all the way through. And so I've seen that impact my performance. And so that's something that I work on every day, like that 10% slower, that slowing down my response time, because I have a tendency to get like wound up pretty fast. So luckily where I work, they don't really allow you to take huge risks of failure until you're like really ready, right? So I haven't had I don't think I've had a concrete moment where I did something that was like a huge mess up or anything like that. You don't really have that opportunity. You have a bunch of layers in front of you. Hopefully I will have that kind of in the immediate future, because now I'm acting more independently. And that's going to allow me to exercise that. But I would say I take things really personally. I take feedback really personally, and sometimes I don't always listen to that because of pride or feeling insecure about that. So that's held me back a little bit, I think, and I'm really trying to be better about that.
Yeah, a lot of people can't self-evaluate that specific thing too,
right
and
word.
So like that's the big step in overcoming it, is being able to admit it.
That's absolutely the right word, is self-evaluation. And then also, like, there's this whole notion, I think in life too, not just in my career, of like, you do you, don't change for anybody, like, you got it, who you are is enough, whatever. Not that you are completely enough, and you are worthy regardless of anything that you do. I think that is total crap. That you shouldn't change in your life, and you shouldn't change. Of course you should. And not everyone's opinions matter. It just straight up doesn't. But you need to have people that you trust to give you their opinion, and you can discern when they give you that opinion of parts of who you are. Hey, I think you should shift that. Hey, I don't think you reacted well to that. It is so important to have trusted advisors that you can say, you know what, you're right. That person over there who doesn't know anything about me, fine, they're saying something, maybe their opinion doesn't matter. But people who you discern that are trusted, you have to take their feedback and you have to pivot and change, because there's no growth without that. And I think that people lack that a lot, that evaluation, where you're just trying to make yourself feel better and say, I'm good the way I am. You are worthy the way you are. You are, you are loved regardless, but you have the ability to be the best version of yourself, and you're wasting that because you don't feel the need to pride. You don't feel the need to change.
That's really good.
I always want to self-assess and then have people who I trust assess, because you can't always see it from your perspective.
No, and sometimes the other perspective actually is way better.
Yeah.
You cloud your own judgment with your own stuff.
Yeah.
That's always the case.
And then surrounding yourself with people that not only just align with your worldview, I think is also really important, because I think it takes intelligence to be able to say, hey, I don't agree with everything about life from you, but you have a different perspective than me. And if I can widen my worldview and see from perspective, I don't necessarily have to do that or agree with you. It makes you a better person, period. And it makes you emotionally intelligent as well, because you don't feel the need to get defensive right away, or that's a wrong like, slow down 10%.
We used to call that critical thinking.
Yes.
When I was coming up in school.
Yeah.
Remember how it was like critical thinking? Here's how you read. Bring it in. Take the knowledge you want.
Yeah.
When people say stuff that you don't agree with or that's hard for you to hear, being able to filter, that's important. Okay, who's the source? What's the motivation? And then what's the information? And how can I take that?
Yes.
And how can I internalize it to self-assess and move forward in a better way? Because our culture is seriously lacking in that. Oh, you don't agree with me?
I'm not going to talk to you anymore.
Get out of my face. I'm never talking to you again.
Again, that's that. And I had that in negotiations too, where it's an automatic response. So this is not putting down anyone who gets this way, because I had that too. You get defensive. It is your immediate response when someone is saying, you're wrong, my way is right, or like, you need to change this. I'm talking like concrete things or large scale things. You have immediate response of getting defensive. What takes emotional intelligence and discipline is, wait a second, I'm going to think about what they just said. I'm going to respond critically. I'm going to discern what that means for my life, what that means for my perspective, but I'm also going to try to understand where they're sitting and why they're thinking those things in a non-emotional, like, very baseline way. I cannot tell you how much that has served me and how much I'm still trying to hone that, because it just doesn't really come naturally to most people. And how much that served me, like, in my job too. Like, it is just straight up enrages people when I will just sit there and go, okay, can you explain that to me again? I'm having a hard time understanding. Enrages. No offense, guys. Especially men.
Hey.
It enrages them.
I am so triggered.
That I'm triggered. That I am sitting here, like, because there is this, like, connotation, and I have proven it sometimes that it's true, that I'm emotional. And if I am not, and I can just slow down and critically think, enrages people. And I'm not going to lie, kind of like it. Because in that perspective, in that specific circumstance, it's a little cool. But
you're defying, there's probably a lot of things going on in their head, like you're not meeting their expectation for how a person would normally respond to them. You're making them now feel bad for the way that they're responding. And that's a lot to deal with all at once.
It's like, why isn't she fighting back? I'm fighting her. And I'm like, I'm not going to fight you. I'm not going to fight you. I'm going to hear you. and then I'm going to respond.
Yeah, and be able to step back and listen to the information critically, like we were talking about. Jordan Peterson has, I think it's one of his 12 rules for life. Have you ever read that bestseller?
I haven't.
But he basically says, treat every interaction, I'm going to paraphrase this, probably butcher it, but like they have something to teach you and you have something to learn.
Yeah.
Every interaction. And like, that's not very easy to do, especially when you think that person's wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe there's an angle that they're coming at it from that is correct and that you could learn from.
Well, and I think, and I've had this discussion when people are like teaching a negotiation class that I've taken is like, you assume a lot every time you interact with a person. You have to make some assumptions, right? There's all this communication that's happening, but you want to take some of that out of it because you're impressing upon someone else with your assumption. So I try a lot in negotiation to figure out why they're saying the thing they're going to think, why they're asking the question they're asking. Because sometimes my assumption on where that's deriving from is off. And maybe I can help them or guide them to a better solution once I know where the root of it is. If I just assume what the root of it is based on what they're saying, I'm not always correct. And so I think that's a perfect explanation of that. Like,
assume they have something to teach you.
Yeah.
And maybe they're right.
Assume positive intent too at first. Like, I really think that's a shift too. Like, you can assume positive intent from people. They prove you otherwise, okay.
Right.
But then start with it.
Then you know.
Yeah, then you know.
That's one of Carrie's big things is assuming.
Yeah.
If you're going to assume intent.
Yeah, I heard him say that.
Assume positive intent. Yeah.
Yeah, assume that.
Yeah, just because your brain has too many ways of sabotaging you.
Right. Yeah. How do you? Okay, so you're young like us. Yeah. Like you're not. You're not the typical.
Just turned 30 and proud.
Yeah. You're not like. I'm sure this is probably most like in reality. People in your position aren't always like what you would think, like the stereotypical, older guy in a suit, like 55-year-old, huge career behind him. And like, those are the ones that are sitting at the table. And these, like, I'm sure that there are lots of, are you like on the younger side for this kind of thing? Okay. Let's go with that. That's a good question.
I'm starting now. Now I'm starting to get like, oh, there's people around me who are younger, but for the most part, I've been the youngest person in the room.
I would assume that makes sense. So how do you have the confidence to like sit across the table from these people and you're on their level? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, I didn't for a really long time and had to fake that till I made that, I always, again, with the assumptions, I always assumed someone was smarter than me in the room, that someone knew more, had more experience. I quickly learned that is just not the case. It is just not the case.
Everybody's struggling.
And some people just talk like they know a lot.
Okay.
And I have to tell myself, well, first of all, confidence also comes with like knowledge. So I just needed time for a while of just, okay, I have this under my belt now. And that builds confidence for me. I will say I am pretty naturally a confident person. I've always have been. So that probably helped play into that. I'm a naturally confident person. Again, confident in my ability to learn, confident in my ability to speak, which is a huge part of my job. But I always thought, oh, that person in the room is smarter than me. That person knows more about this subject than me. And that was the first time in my life that I kind of felt that way. Because I think I didn't have that, like I said, I didn't have that like an innate natural ability in a lot of these skills. And I wasn't really used to that. I only did things that I was kind of naturally good at for my whole life. And that went away quickly when I saw like, wait a second, I looked into that and that wasn't correct. Or, hey, I've been through something and that didn't really add up. And it just took time for me to build that confidence and to build that self-talk of, hey, even if they do know more about that, like I know more about something else. Mm-hmm. Not everyone's going to have the same skill set. And I'm at this point feeling very confident in my skills to be able to sit across people. And it's not about my age. It's not about that I'm a woman. It's not about the level of experience necessarily in years. It's the quality of that experience. And I feel very fortunate that I was able to have really high quality experience that were really hard and I think can be translated into a lot of different areas. So I feel like I have a good knowledge base to feel confident. And just the repetition of it, I think, just helps.
Doing it all the time.
Doing it. The
more times you speak up, the more confident you are to speak up.
You just have to do it. And that's the one, like, negotiate. Like, if you're practicing something on Excel, you can go do that over and over and over again. Or someone can teach you, like, from a PowerPoint and show you how to do something. To learn, like, negotiating, you just got to go do it. You just got to go do it. And you got to just bite the bullet and say, I would get so nervous, guys. Like, I would get, some people that I work with can tell you, like, I have to wear high neck things because even if I slow my heart rate down, I'd get, like, hivey things. One thing I was grateful for. It's a tell. That's my tell. Luckily, my voice doesn't shake. And so that was never an issue I had, but a lot of people get that.
That's, like, probably the number one.
A lot of people get that.
You take a public speaking class,
it's hard. Like, you know what happens to me sometimes when I'm speaking in front of, like, a large room? My knee will tremble. Like, even if I'm, like, super confident, there is something about speaking in a room full of a ton of important people on a very high stakes project that your adrenaline is high enough that, like, it doesn't matter how confident in your head your body feels it. And so I was watching a TikTok the other day that was like, the most important thing you can do before you present, like, you had already done the research. You'd already know the topic. You're already confident in that. You have your speech, whatever. Right before, you're not studying your notes. You are slowing down your body. You are focusing on your breathing. Because there is something about, like, no matter how confident you are, the adrenaline, maybe that's why I like it, like, chasing the high a little bit of, okay, let's go.
It's a drug.
Yeah. And it is.
Yeah,
adrenaline junkie.
I get that every time I sell something on Marketplace.
Chasing the high. Chasing the high of the Marketplace.
$1 billion contract for helicopters. I sold my tricycle.
It is. But now I do feel confident. I'm, like, finally at a place in my career where I feel like I'm not just learning. I'm able to do things independently. I'm able to teach. That's just a lot took time.
Yeah. Don't they say that when you're, like, any profession, it's like there's a 5-year sweet spot?
Yeah.
Generalize
I think
that.
It's like I'm in a mid
like,
level now.
I've been here for 5 years. Now I understand what I'm doing.
And I'm helping someone who just joined right out of college, and I was like, you won't even speak this language for 3 to 6 months. You got to give yourself grace. Like, there are so many words you will not understand because college could not have prepared you for this kind of world. So I was like, you need to give yourself grace. Mm-hmm. Keep asking questions. Keep wanting to learn. And if 3-6 months down the line, if you're like, I was in a meeting and I understood what they were saying.
Yep.
You don't have to make a judgment yet. You don't have to know how to address it. You understood. 2 thumbs up. That's how long it takes.
You know what's such a great quality from people that I admire mostly, that I would consider high achievers, is, like, a confident humility. Mm-hmm. And I know that sounds kind of contradictory, but kind of being secure in your competency, but having the ability to be humble enough to know you don't know everything and somebody can teach you something. Like, that looks so much more intelligent to me than somebody who's like, I know it all. I have all the answers.
Well, usually the person saying that, like, they're not doing the self-evaluation that you're talking about.
Yep.
Because there is constant stuff to get better at. Like, there just is. And so if you're at that place where you're like, I know it all, then you need to go find yourself another challenge. Because if you're too complacent, if you're in a, like, you're not going to grow. You're not going to get any better at anything. Yep. And that's just, again, you're not self-evaluating. And to me, I'm like, if I'm ever feeling like, wow, I really got this all under control, I'm going to go look for the next challenge because I want to grow. And I know there's a million things that I don't know. But I feel confident in my ability to use my experience to try and help me make decisions quickly, pivot from failure.
Problem solve.
That's the confidence you want to have. Problem solve. Not that you know everything about the subject. You clearly do not. You clearly do not.
These things are like a lifelong pursuit.
Yeah. And also boring. I would be so bored if I was like, I got this all. Oh, question? Got an answer for you.
Got it.
That's so boring. Yeah. I want the next challenge. Once I'm feeling like, okay, I got this under control.
Yeah, that's
on to the
important.
next thing. Yeah.
We lost feed on a couple. Do you guys have time for one more segment?
Sure.
Okay, because people are probably like, we wanted to. You said we were going to talk about personality. I'm waiting.
Yes,
so we'll do that, and then we'll wrap up, and then we'll get her going.
Cool.
All right.
We're like, this girl
Hang
gabs,
tight, everybody.
man. She gabs. Yeah.
We're back. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay. Before our listeners are gonna be outraged that we didn't talk about personality.
You're going to get hate comments.
Yeah.
How dare you?
You said at the last break that we were going to do the personality thing.
But that big oaf on the right keeps asking dumb questions.
Well, if they're watching it, maybe I'm okay. I guess you're kind of on the right.
She's like, that one won't stop. Yeah, that's me.
I want to talk to you specifically because you and I have had conversations about personality and addictive tendencies in your personality. I'm interested to hear how that's impacted your life balance with work, and then also where you use that to find time for yourself.
Yeah.
It sounds like to me you're working, you're a mom, you're a wife. It's like, is there time for you in there anywhere?
Yeah, this is good. So yeah, you and I have talked about that, the addictive personality, and I'm really lucky. I had a good childhood. I was pretty mentally healthy. So luckily, my addictive personality didn't fall into anything that was egregious or very harmful to me. So I feel very fortunate for that. And we talked about superpower and kryptonite. This is where I feel like this kind of lies for me is, having that drive that once I'm in it, I'm going to do it and do it full force. And I can't give half of myself. I have to give 110% every time. That is 100% one of my superpowers. And I try to tell Leo this all the time. The things about him, most of those things that are most amazing about him are his superpowers. They can also be his kryptonite. And you again, this is about the self-evaluation. It's about recognizing where you need to shift and hone in on those things. This can 100% be my downfall. And I've seen it in my work-life balance where I just will not stop because I have this insatiable desire to just go after it. I cannot help myself. That's proven really helpful, right? In my career, I grow really quickly. So far I have good product. To my mental health, not always the best, right? That's difficult. And I think sometimes I see that as detrimental to my relationships in my real life, because I can't put it down. So I'm really trying to hone that and prioritize. You go 110% at the thing that's in front of you because that is the most important thing in front of you right now. I have to be able to prioritize things and not just because anything go and be addicted to figuring that out, solving that problem, whatever it is. I'm not great at it. So I'm not going to, say I am just because I'm on a podcast or anything like that. I really struggle with that. But it's both good and bad. So that's definitely a part of my personality. I try to use that now a little bit more in my life because I'm finally, after 4 years, thinking about myself a little bit. I'm recently on a health journey. I've lost a lot of weight because I had a little bit of an addictive thing and I used food to cope with my stress. You asked about what do you do to manage stress. There was years that I used food. And I was it's just not important to me right now. And that's okay. That was my season, right? I had to get a hold of that. It couldn't be my whole life, but that's how I coped. And now I'm trying to use my addictive personality in terms of a superpower of, all right, I'm eating it completely differently than I did. I really want to move more. I really want to go out and relate to people like as a grown-up, as an adult, not just as a mom, as Jenna. So I'm trying to hone that part of my personality for good for me, you know. Mm-hmm. So
that's similar to Corwin Chrisman was our first guest.
Yeah.
Third podcast, episode 3. Same thing.
Yeah.
In the other direction. He has a super addictive personality that he honed into fitness to an unhealthy degree at the other extreme. Kind of interesting to think about. And the more that you can know that about yourself, the more you can watch your proclivities to certain vices.
Yeah. Because anything could become a vice, truly. Like, it doesn't matter if that's a quality that's revered or it's a thing. Like, working hard is great. Fitness is great. But anything that, like, you are using to cope with stressful things or define your worth, I think it could be a problem, right? You have to have that ability to deal with stress and respond by, first of all, just feeling it. Just got to be able to feel it. And know your worth by just being. Like, you are worthy just because you are, and not because of the things that's another part of my personality is I am so people pleaser oriented, and I'm so external validation oriented. I love getting, you did a great job. Like, you guys were talking about love languages, and it was like words of affirmation. Boy, am I words of affirmation. Like, I just constantly want that. I'm really working on that because that could be a problem, an addictiveness.
Yeah, you're doing a really good job.
Oh, thanks. I love that.
You're really great at that.
You're so awesome. No, I really do. And it's not cute, right? It's not cute. So I'm trying to like know my value, know my worth, know it's a good job without someone having to say it all the time. And also, you know, I don't always need to do a great job. Like, it's okay. Like, you know.
Yeah. Do you do an okay job telling yourself that you're doing good? Like, or do you go, is there like an amount of time that you go where someone hasn't validated your performance and then you can't do that for yourself? And like, or are you, is that something that you can manage on your own, or is that what you're trying to get better at? Or how are you doing with that?
That's a really interesting thought. And I don't know if I thought about it so discreetly, but when I do, so I'm okay at it. I'm okay at telling myself, actually, that was pretty good. What is not good is that won't be enough for me. I like to hear it from somebody else who holds stake in it. So I'm actually pretty good at like, hey, no, I value that. No, I could have done that better. Or that was pretty good. I'm not so hard on myself that it hurts my confidence. I do evaluate like, okay, I could have done this better, but that doesn't like hurt me. And I'm pretty good at like, okay, that was really good. Good job. But then it's like, I can't wait to show someone that. But I'm really becoming more self-aware of that and trying to, because when you get to a point like in my career or in life, I guess like as a person who's more in like the mid phase of life, is people are going to be harder on you, and it's I guess it's not all about like pats on the back anymore, and not everyone's going to like you. Like if you're going to be a leader, definitely have to be okay with people not liking you. They have to respect you. And I realize now that those are two different things, and I have to be okay enough with myself that not everyone has to like who I am. They just have to respect that I'm making a good decision. That's really, maybe that's my next phase. Like the first was learning and feeling confident to work independently, and now my next will be, how do I get okay with myself enough to not be liked but be respected?
Yeah.
That's a hard balance. Yeah, that's a tough one.
And for me, oh my gosh. I want everyone to like me so bad. Yeah, so bad. So that's,
I'm interested to hear a little more from you about your motivations. You said that you need a lot of external motivation. Everybody's different.
Yeah.
I think I'm a little bit, I like external motivation from my wife.
Yeah.
But I don't really need it from anybody else.
Yeah.
Like if I'm going through a fitness journey or something, like I don't need to broadcast it.
I
actually like to suffer in silence to that degree.
Interesting. Yeah.
Which is, I don't know if that's my personality or it's just a man thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's plenty of men who like to broadcast it. That's fine. That's fine. And I think people a lot of times will scoff at people who are, here's my fitness journey. Look at my fitness journey. Oh, well, they're just doing it for attention. Well, if it's a net positive and they're improving their life, then maybe don't be so judgmental.
And it's interesting because I always try to look back at the root because I've always showcased as a person who has a lot of internal motivation because I will, again, just go sit and do the hard thing, like whatever. I think sometimes my end goal is I will go push myself to do the thing. Someone doesn't have to push me to go do it. It's I want to have a good product at the end of it. I want to do well at the end of it so I can get some validation from that. And so I'm trying to kind of say, like, this is good. Every once in a while, this is good. But to get that validation, how can I harness this thing I clearly already have inside of me to go push myself to go do the hard thing myself, purely for the exercise of it? Because now I'm also learning, it's really just not about the product. Like, it is not all about the end product. It is about that journey to get there. And that can only be for yourself. Like, in the end, I'm only going to have myself and how I view myself. So what's the disconnect there? So that's so funny because I've always presented as a person who has, wow, you don't have to tell her to do anything. She just goes and does it. And if I'm being honest with myself, a lot of it's because I do want that end. So
the recognition at the end.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't think there's any way to say that that's not okay either.
Yeah.
That's great. I think that's fine. And if you know that about yourself, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, because you don't want it to get out of control. Yeah.
Exactly. And you also don't want it to be something that draws you away from a personal goal. You know, like, okay, well, I want to do this just for me. And then in the back of your mind, you're like, yeah, but I'd really like it if other people appreciated this that I'm doing. Then it gives you an opportunity to work on that.
Yeah,
and find
absolutely.
That and find that in yourself to do something for you, just for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with your work-life balance, is it difficult for you to find time for your personal hobbies? Or like if you're wanting to work out, is it tough for you? Because you work a lot.
Yeah, I do.
And you have
in some ways, yeah. So for instance, I studied music in college. I did a lot of like vocal performance. I sang a lot. It was a huge part of my life.
Prove it.
And yeah.
Prove it.
La, 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 la. No, okay.
Dun, 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 dun.
I did that like once I got out of college, I was singing kind of like professionally where I would go for church and they would pay me as a cantor or I'd do certain events. And every Tuesday I was part of a choir. Then I started school. I got, more involved in my job. So I can't do that in this season of my life. That was a huge, huge, like, oh, it's a part of me and I miss it so much. And it's part of my soul, honestly. And I'm like, oh gosh, that's hard. But I'm slowly getting back to, okay, I gotta have some hobbies, not just like work at something. Like, what can I do for fun? So I did start a book club with a bunch of my friends. And What's a book? We read a book like every month.
Like with words on
every month.
Words. Once a month we have a book club. And that's been really cool. That's like every month we get together, we talk about the book. It's just fun thing to go do.
I didn't get an invite.
No, it is.
Unreal.
Ladies only? Wow. So discriminatory.
Very.
We invite you onto our Perceived Men's Only podcast.
Here we are, the first female guest. I am feeling so much regret right now.
You want to read Beautyland? Yeah, like anyone? No? Okay.
I think if you invited me to a book...
I'll pass. Okay.
Yeah. If you invited me to a book club, I would, every month you were like, okay, guys, how was it? And I'd be like, Is there a movie about this? The movie was great.
So I'm trying to do that. I'm really trying to. It has been really fun. I would love to go back to singing eventually one day, like when I'm done with this. I'm done in December of 2025, and so.
Wait, what's in 2025?
I finished my grad school. So, okay, then I can maybe go back to doing that. And I listen to a lot of music. Like me and actually a friend at work years ago, we started a back and forth share music albums that we might not have looked up ourselves.
Share.
And we share those things.
Nice.
And we've been doing that for years. And my musical genre has just exploded, and I love like listening to full albums, like figuring like that is just cold plunge. I needed music. That is just, it feeds me. So I'm trying more to do that. It's really hard when I have a toddler who needs me, and any free time I spend, I do want to spend with him. I tend to overcompensate. Like I said, I want to spend with him, but I am trying because I need to be who I am too. And it's important for him to see me at my healthiest self. Mm-hmm. And to be healthy, I need to be well-rounded. So I'm trying.
Nice.
You have any questions?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to wrap up or, close with if you had any idea, like what, if you had goals, like tangible goals for your career, like whether it was, and I don't know if this is something where like, in your corporate, world where you don't typically say these things out loud, or if that's the culture,
no,
or
you definitely say it out loud.
Yeah,
for sure.
The things that you've said about your company so far seem like they're a little more on the healthier end of like, understanding that people have families and stuff like that. So like what, do you have any like specific goals, like climbing the ladder, anything that you want to see for your, where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years, whatever?
Yeah.
Do you always want to sell helicopters, or do you want to sell F-22s? Like, I don't know how it works in your world. Like, what do goals look like? And do you have any?
Yeah. So, some like tangible, like kind of close term within the next 5 years, I would like to be a formal leader at some point and have a team and manage a team. I would like to work more of these large negotiations. It doesn't really matter the product to me, honestly. It honestly doesn't even really matter the dollar value, but more responsibility more risk is fun for me. So, move that way, I would be important. I think I would like to see different areas of the business. I've been working at this area of the business for a long time. I would love to see different areas of the business, different customers. Would love to work some more sales and contracts of international. I found that really super intriguing, but definitely close term is I'm like trying to gauge and hone in on my informal leadership experience so that I can become a formal leader. And then in the next, few years move up. So one, in my career, because I just think that challenge is fun, but two, I also obviously have tangible goals for like my family in terms of like finances and what we want to do for my son, what we want to do for our home, what we want to save, how we want to address all that. So I have those kinds of goals as well, that I'd like to like get rid of my debt, right? Like I got student debt still. I want to finish my master's. Yeah, I want to have that degree. And then, I definitely want to, at this point, move up the corporate ladder. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't really know what that looks like. I do like this function, though. I think I'll stay here for a while. I do like negotiating a lot.
So for people who are listening to this and finding value in, they're relating to you and they might have a similar work setting, or they're looking at you and seeing value in your business knowledge in the corporate area, what you mentioned networking before being like a huge tool, and one of the main reasons why you got this current position.
Yeah.
What advice? What's one important tool that a piece of advice that you could give somebody who's looking at the same type of situation that you're in and wondering how they can move up? Like, what's one tool that will help them get there?
Yeah. Find the people who you would like to emulate and latch on and learn from them. Be humble enough to learn from them. Find where your skills lack and go find that person who fills that. That's a huge thing. And then make an impression. You want to be seen for just the product that you do. That is just not reality. Like, it is just not. You have to stand out. And to me, the way I try to approach that, it's different for every person, but I really like seeing people at a personal level. And so even if it's a director or an executive or whatever, I try to remember things about them that we talked about, especially personal things that we can connect on. Hey, I remember you took that vacation. How was that? What's been going on in your life? What's changed in your life since we last spoke? Remembering their family's names. Super important to me to connect. And it's not important to everyone. It really isn't. This is part of my style of leadership, style of personality, and intercommunication skills. But for me, it has helped me connect so much. Hey, I remember your son was in band camp. Was he play the trombone? And that matters to people. Like, that stuff matters. And when I can connect someone as a person, we do business better together.
Yeah. So it goes outside your job description.
Yeah,
Go outside your job description.
You're spending so much time with these people. You're spending so much time. So it is not worth it to me to just do the business and get the product and whatever. It is so worth it to me to work well as a team, like each other as a team, not always have to like each other, at least respect each other, work well together. And to me, that takes the extra step.
Very cool.
Yeah, connect on a deeper personal level.
Yeah, that's what life's all about anyway.
Teams function better that way.
They do.
Yeah. You want to go to bat for your...
No, you want to fight together. You want to go arm in arm with the person you care about next to you.
Not trying to, one up them or stab them in the back. That would be the opposite.
Yeah.
It's not, yeah.
And then learn from each other. Yeah. It doesn't matter if it's the person who started out of college a month ago. Like, you have stuff that you can learn from them, and they have stuff they can learn from you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. So like the Michael Scott right on the back of the business card, their kids' names.
Yeah. Do you know, seriously?
So I know to go ahead and shut up about it.
That's right. Color code it.
Color code it.
Green for.
Yeah. Do not.
Yes. That means go ahead. So I know to go ahead and shut up about it.
Green means go ahead.
Green means go ahead and shut up about it. You can learn a lot. You can learn a lot from Michael Scott.
He's got some tidbits.
He's got a book, Somehow I Manage.
That's hilarious.
Anyway, we could I think that's probably a pretty good place to wrap up.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming in.
Fun.
While you were here anyway, but thanks for taking the time to talk to us dopes.
I love it. No, this is really insightful conversation for me too. There's a few things that I didn't think about until you guys phrased it the way you did. So I really appreciated the conversation and the dialogue.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think people that would, like Nick was saying, if somebody's in a similar position, similar life stage, it might be helpful to hear some perspective on some of these things that you're good at or you struggle with or you're working on. So that's pretty good. Nick, you want to send us out of here?
Thanks, Jenna. I think I filled out your page more than anybody else's. So
love it. Love it.
Lots to learn.
Here to talk more anytime.
Thanks,
Loved
man.
it.
Appreciate
when
it.
you're a CEO, we'll have you back on.
I thought, once again, keeping this to an hour and a half I'd ask you about the helicopters and stuff more, but I don't know if that's interesting to people.
I know. Some people are like, oh,
very
my
fascinating.
gosh.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I'd love to. There's so many more questions I have, but maybe you can come on again sometime.
I'm here.
Thanks.
All right, cool. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you.